Hi everybody, I'm Jeff Kelly. I'm here at Cloud Foundry Summit 2018. My guest is Jonathan Regehr. He's a senior software engineer at Garmin. Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Absolutely, thanks for joining us. So Garmin's been a Cloud Foundry user for a number of years now, but I understand you recently rolled out Pivotal Cloud Foundry 2.0.
Correct.
And one topic I'm really interested in is automation and how that helps with rolling out the platform and managing it. Can you talk a little bit about that rollout and the role that Concourse played in automation and making that a bit of a smoother deployment?
Absolutely. It's not always the easiest thing to deploy Cloud Foundry, even though it's much easier than it used to be. But the idea of doing that all over the place is not the best experience. So our goal was to come up with a way where we would kind of do the Oprah style, you get a car and you get a car, and have our Cloud Foundry work that way. So yeah, we used Concourse, and our process was we kind of built all the params in one giant deal. So we go through one params file, get that thing all filled out, and then we have to get a jump box stood up, and you got to get a Bosch stood up, and then everything else happens. So we can go chunk, 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 and all of our Cloud Foundries are up and running. So,
and as opposed to in the past, it was a much more manual effort.
Absolutely, yeah, it was manual where you get the ops manager installed, and you go through and you do all the configuration there, and you have this giant spreadsheet of, okay, this thing goes here and this thing goes here. Hey, I pasted that in the wrong spot, and we'll do it all over again.
Right, anytime there's manual effort, there's possibility for human error.
Absolutely.
So the more you can automate, the less human error likely to happen.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. Automation also plays a role in terms of scaling the platform and the applications on the platform.
Yes.
And I know Garmin, for example, has a big spike in traffic. I think it's either Christmas or maybe the day after Christmas.
Right.
People open up their Garmin, their presents under the tree.
Yep.
It's a Garmin watch or another device. They want to log on to Garmin.com, register it, get the data flowing so they can track their activity, for example.
Oh yeah.
And so now you've got a spike in traffic. How do you use automation and other tools to scale the platform, scale those applications to make sure everything's running smoothly? Because obviously that being a big day, in some cases it's the first interaction that people have had with Garmin. They want to have you want them to have a good experience.
Right.
How do you handle that problem, scaling the platform and the applications?
So we're a little interesting in that we are running an on-prem cloud. So once we bought the hardware, we might as well be using it. So for things like Christmas, we do plan ahead a little and we build the platform out bigger than we need it to be. However, we're still using the Pivotal Autoscaler to handle the actual application scaling. So our applications are scaling up and down as we need them, but the hardware's bought, it's sitting there, we might as well use it. So we're going to make sure that on the IaaS layer we're running way heavier than we need, so that as that spike happens, and sometimes that becomes our new normal, right, where these things start to track steps and things like that, and so they're syncing all of the time. So all of a sudden, where we had 100 people doing that yesterday, now we have 150. So we get the hockey stick, but then it never comes back down. It's sort of like it stays there, and then
there's another hockey stick.
Right. So we buy the IaaS as we need it, get it going, and then we're relying on the autoscaler. But again, with the Concourse, all we have to do is go in and say, so we wanted 10 Diego cells before, well now we want 15. Pipeline runs and off we go. So
you kind of set the parameters, and then the application autoscaler kind of handles the actual fluctuations throughout the day of the weeks and that kind of thing.
That's
I'm sure Christmas Day is one, but I'm sure there are other days throughout the year that you see spikes, and sometimes you can plan for them, and perhaps sometimes not.
Right. Yeah, we do really go in cycles. So we have a lot of runners and cyclists and things like that, and so you get that sort of 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Hey, I just finished my run. I want to see what my data look like. How'd I do? And then again on the weekend, everybody goes for a run or a ride on the weekend, and so there's that Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, where we just get killed. Right,
those weekend warriors. I got it. I'm one myself.
Nice.
So in terms of the developer experience and developer productivity, again, automation can play a role there in terms of supporting continuous delivery, continuous deployment, those kinds of things. Talk about how Pivotal Cloud Foundry is helping your developers be more productive, whether it's through automation or other ways.
I would say it's both automation and other ways. So back in the days of the VM, we had, you have your dev VM and you have your test VM and you have your non-prod VM, and they get treated a bit like pets, and that's not good.
Right.
So hey, I need to deploy something. Oh yeah, so do I. I got to test my thing. So then you have this contention there. Now everybody has their own sandbox. Everybody has a place to play before they even want to go to dev. And then on top of that, we're using, unfortunately, we're using Jenkins. I'd love to see us using Concourse, but we use Jenkins because it's got a little more control over who can do what. We're pipelining the deployments as well. So once we have code that's ready for production, that once it's committed, that process just flows, and you get the code into dev, you get it in test, you get into production. So our developers are spending way less time on the chores or the toil of getting their application into production, and that pipeline now is doing all the work. That, hey, we're going to release today, okay, that's what we're going to do today, is no longer really a thing, and we've kind of given developers a lot of their time back.
I'm sure they're appreciative of that, and in turn that impacts the customer experience because they're getting new features more frequently, and the software is continuously updated to improve their experience. So it's both developer productivity, and of course there's a business outcome with the customers.
And you get faster releases. It used to be the release hurt, so the things that hurt, you do them when you have to, and now we do releases as often as we can.
Now, in addition to the tooling and the platform itself, when it comes to developer productivity, as well as operations efficiency, there's also a cultural component and a kind of a changing of the way we do things, whether it's from, depending on where you start, it could be very dramatic, from a waterfall type experience to more agile. What has that been like at Garmin? What are some of the cultural and process and people changes you've had to make, and how have people adapted to that, and what were some strategies to make that a little bit smoother transition?
We've been trying to get as close to the Pivotal Labs model as we can, so we built our own lab. It's not the biggest lab, but it seems like cultural change needs to come not really fast sometimes. You've got to sort of bring people along. So it's been really a grassroots effort, and frankly, I've been really surprised at how many of our developers tried it and loved it. I thought I was going to get a lot more pushback with, oh, I don't want to pair, that sounds terrible, or things like that. And you've got the extrovert versus the introvert, and I thought that was really going to play a part. And in some cases, it did. But I was really shocked at how many people were like, I don't want to go back to how things were. I want to do this. So it's been really great. And like I said, we're doing it kind of grassroots, so it's not a fast change process. Doing it that way really gives us the ability to mature as we go, and make sure that as we're doing it the best way that we can.
And when you say the Pivotal Labs way, you're referring to pair programming and some of the other methodologies that they use.
Correct.
And kind of final question, you mentioned it's a little bit of a slow going process and not something you could rush, but what is your strategy, or is it perhaps a developing strategy, to scale the approach throughout all the developers at Garmin, so that it's not just, hey, this group of people are using this new approach, but this is just the way we do things here at Garmin? How is that going to play out, do you think, over the coming months and years?
I think you're going to see a lot of changes in our development culture. We're working really hard to kind of make that lab process work for us. So we bring groups in, and we look at how they do things, and we're like, hey, maybe a PM and a BA and some of the other roles that we have aren't all necessary. So we're trying to streamline things a little bit, and testing has been another big thing for us. I don't know if a lot of other folks have this issue, but when the deadline gets closer, the first thing that falls away is testing. So we've been working really hard to make sure that we have things tested to the point where ultimately we get everything out of the pipeline, or all the manual steps out of the pipeline, and we're actually deploying from development to production with no manual intervention between. So that's going to be a huge cultural shift as teams are like, nobody has to touch this, we don't have to test it. Well, yeah, we'll test it, but we're going to try and do it in as automated a fashion as we possibly can.
Great. And as we wrap up, so in the next 6 months, year ahead, maybe we're talking next year at the show, what are some of the things you hope to accomplish? What's on your agenda? What are you looking forward to?
I'd like to see us pipelining a lot more of our apps. I'd like to see other teams in Garmin besides the teams that are already using PCF get onto the platform. So we have a lot of growth to do. Our foundation is big, but I think it's going to need to be even bigger. And we have teams in places like Taiwan that I don't think have even seen Cloud Foundry yet. So I think you're going to see us taking the Cloud Foundry message around sort of the global Garmin, as opposed to just keeping it in our headquarters for now.
Well, great. Sounds like you have an exciting year ahead.
We do.
Sounds great. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it. I'll let you get back to the conference. Thanks again.
Thank you. My pleasure.